Hello everyone, welcome back to the second part of this lecture on return on invested capital and growth. And in this part of the lecture I want to talk a little bit about the empirics on return on invested capital. So what are some of the patterns that you can see in return on invested capital? So keep in mind these mostly deal with medians, averages, distributions. So they're maybe not representative for the type of company that you will analyze. In fact, hey, if you're analyzing a company, it's highly likely that they are in some way extraordinary, because otherwise why analyze them? But this will still give you a pretty good idea of, hey, how can you expect return on invested capital to develop over time? Give you some of the numbers on what you can expect for average return on invested capital. So if you see, for instance, for your company that return on invested capital is very, very high, you have a place to kind of put that in your mind, like, hey, is this very high or is this very low return on invested capital? Is this representative of the industry or not? And if it's not, that's maybe not too big of a deal as long as you have a good explanation for that. So let's talk a little bit about these empirics on return on invested capital. Also very focused on the American market. So for Europe, stuff can be slightly different, but the American market is typically analyzed so much because the data is more readily available and more easily comparable, simply because, well, it's such a big market and a lot of data is available there. So first thing to note is that overall return on invested capital has gone up over time. So between the 1963 and the early 2000s was about 10%, and in 2013 this increased to 16%. So highly likely this has something to do with ICT, both in making sure that stuff is more productive. So ICT typically makes it easier to scale up, because, well, you no longer need this huge back office to communicate, but more fixed cost type of back office. And it may also have to do with the fact that, well, our economy is more service oriented, so there's typically less capital invested in any given industry. What drives these return on invested capitals? Well, first of all, line of business matters a lot. So you have certain industries that have very high return on invested capital, industries that have very low return on invested capital. Of course, within industries there's going to be huge variations, but simply looking at the line of business that a company is in can already tell you a lot about return on invested capital. And finally, what's kind of nice to see about returns on invested capital is that they're relatively stable over time. Of course, they still vary over time, but typically if you are a company that has high return on invested capital in the past, you can expect that high return on invested capital to at least be somewhat persistent into the future. So if we look into overall return on invested capital, so here you see this increase over time, where in the past was always relatively around 10% or so, very stable, and then since the early 2000s, so more or less when ICT really became this mainstay within households and firms, you see this huge increase in the return on invested capital. If you look into the distribution of this return on invested capital, also changed over time. So note that here on the horizontal axis is return on invested capital, and then each of these lines, they represent a certain period. So this is the distribution over returns on invested capital. And what you see is that for 1965, 1967, this is more or less log normally distributed. So you see there's a couple of firms that have very, very high return on invested capital, and most of them are relatively tight between, let's say, 5 and 25% or so. And then as you go to later periods, so 1995, 1997, and 2005, 2007, you see that this curve somewhat flattens, right? So the gray line is somewhat flatter than the dark black line, and then the dotted line is even flatter. And what you also see is that in 1995, 1997, 2005, 2007, there's on the outliers, there's way more companies that have huge return on invested capital. So there's way more companies that are just making a ton of money. But that's not entirely what drives this increase in the overall return on invested capital, because even if you look just at the average distribution, it's just way flatter even at lower end of the distribution. So return on invested capital matters a lot which industry you're in. So here you see, for instance, software, pharmaceuticals, IT services have very high return on invested capital, and you also see that this is relatively persistent. So the firms that had high return on invested capital between 1965 and 1995 also tend to have high return on invested capital between 1995 and 2013. Of course, there's also going to be companies that flip the sign around here, but more or less you see that, hey, if an industry that had high return on invested capital in the past, it does so in the future again. Which may be not too surprising, because let's say software always will have relatively low investments in capital for their returns. Stuff like pharmaceuticals will always be characterized by huge economies of scale, and stuff, if you look at the very bottom, so airlines, paper, utilities, those are very, very capital intensive industries. So lots of investment there for, at least for stuff like utilities and nowadays airlines, just not that much gain. From time to time you also see that companies kind of flip. So something like retail nowadays high return on invested capital, because, well, stuff like Amazon is nowadays in there, which has different type of business model than companies did in the past, and maybe that also helps a little bit with return on invested capital. So if you're going to look at these returns on invested capital, they can also differ a lot even within industries. And they can start asking yourself why. So for instance, here I have two types of food companies, so cereal manufacturers and meat producers. And if you look a little bit and think a little bit about cereal manufacturers, meat producers, well, these cereal manufacturers have been very good at branding their stuff. So for instance, Kellogg cornflakes, whatever type of cereal you enjoy, typically they're in these colorful boxes, while meat is, well, more or less meat, so it's not it didn't receive the same branding opportunities. Based on this fact, which of the following do you think is the most accurate concerning the price advantages of cereal manufacturers compared to meat producers? I'll give you a moment to think about it. And then indeed the return on invested capital will be higher for these cereal manufacturers, simply because, well, branding creates this competitive advantage, so they are able to ask for this price markup. So the key point here is that even within the industries you can have very different types of companies, and what's important about these returns on invested capital is that you understand both where they come from and how they manifest themselves. So another thing to note is that return on invested capital is relatively persistent. So in principle, if you look at the graph on the right hand side here, you see that companies that had very high return on invested capital tend to have pretty high return on invested capital some years along the road. Of course, returns on invested capital, they tend to decline because, well, if you think of these companies with very high return on invested capital, at first they offer this brand new product, they can ask for a high markup, they sell it to consumers that want to buy this, want to pay this high markup. But as you expand your production, you've already reached those consumers that want to pay a lot, and now you need to attract new consumers, which is going to, well, be a lot harder than attracting those initial customers. So for instance, maybe you have to offer a slightly lower price to them, you have to incur more cost to reach them, and overall this will mean that your return on invested capital will go down over time somewhat. But what is interesting to note here, not only that the lines tend to kind of converge a little bit to an overall average, is that they never cross. So companies that made a high return on invested capital in the past also tend to make high return on invested capital in the future, which kind of makes sense. If you made a good product last year, it's highly likely that you're still making a good product that people want to pay a lot of money for. And this also gives you a little bit of a sense of what you can expect for patterns for return on invested capital. So if you're ever doing a valuation in which people say, hey, this return on invested capital is always going to be at this very, very high level, it's highly unlikely that that is realistic, unless they have a very good story. So you can't outright say, hey, this doesn't make sense, but it is this does give you some idea of, hey, what can you expect for the patterns. If you then look into this gives you somewhat of an idea also of how big are these returns on invested capital. So if anyone ever comes in for a company that has, let's say, 50% or higher return on invested capital, absolutely fine to have that if you have a good story for this return on invested capital, but very hard to sustain this for a longer period of time. So overall, if you look into the empirics of return on invested capital, returns on invested capital driven by competitive advantages. So how difficult is it to copy something? And then industry matters. Over time, returns on invested capital tend to decline. So these are the empirics and the theory behind return on invested capital. Next part of the lecture, I'm going to go into growth. See you there.